Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the members of the public who have joined us tonight. We are holding this meeting on the traditional territory of Coast Salish First Nations, and I would like to call our regular board meeting back to order. The first item that we have to deal with is an approval of the agenda. If there are no additions, a motion to adopt, moved by Director Kent, welcome, and seconded by Director Marsh. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I would also like to welcome Director Stead, who is here for Director Nicholson, and Director Morris, who is here for Director Clement, and Director Tatum, who is here for Director Kuhn. Welcome tonight. We still have Director Davis, who is trying to get away, but unable to at this point. Okay, moving on then. We have the minutes from the regular board meeting of September 26th. If there are no errors or omissions, a motion to adopt. Moved by Director Davis, seconded by Director Morrison. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We can move down to the public input period. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Morrison. I jumped over your business arising.
Yes, under in the minutes there was resolution 18-496 in regards to a report being prepared on herbicides and eradication of invasive plants. Was going to recommend it might be more appropriate that that report come to the Electoral Area Services Committee in advance of it coming to the board. It's more applicable to the electoral areas.
I can take that as a motion. Thank you.
And I would move that.
Seconded by Director Acton. Any question on this? All in favor? And opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Morrison. Public input period. Anyone who would like to speak for up to 3 minutes on an item on the agenda, please come forward. Seeing no one, we can move on to delegations, and I would like to invite forward Maria and John Pite, Anna Molino, and Dennis Jansen, or some subset of those, to the podium to speak to an issue of the Boathouse on Wiltshire Road.
Chair and board members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to our situation regarding our boathouse located in Mill Bay. The property we own has 2 homes on it. John and Maria Pite, myself, own one, and the other is owned by my sister, Anna Molino, and her husband, Dennis Jansen. Our property and neighboring properties on both sides have been in my husband's family for generations. The beachfront has our boathouse, built approximately 70 years ago by John's grandfather. We took ownership of the property in 2014. 2 pre-existing homes were demolished and 2 new homes built. One took approximately 1 year to build, the other approximately 2 years. For personal reasons, it was decided amongst us 4 that Anna and Dennis would finance and coordinate any repairs to the boathouse, which we thought would take place after their new home was complete. While their house was in the construction phase, Anna spent considerable time at the property. She decided to undergo the repairs to the boathouse and had discussed this with her builder. Unfortunately, what they had discussed and what was performed was beyond that scope. As we were away, John and I came home to find the roof line had been extended as well as extensive repairs performed. Our relatives on the right side had to tolerate almost 2 years of construction next to them. One of them, and there are 3 sets of couples on that side, was concerned at one point about the size of the house deck and if this was permissible. John advised them both houses were building to code and to allowable setbacks, but they could call the CVRD to have their questions answered directly. They did. So when repairs were being undertaken to the boathouse, one family member also called the CVRD and said they wanted it understood that they were not actually filing a complaint, just wanted to ask questions about the allowable repairs. It is our understanding this is the only phone call or concern. What resulted is where we have been for the past 3 years. Ongoing communication with the CVRD, including on-site meetings and inspections, application for a development permit, and completing all requirements of that permit relating to our riparian bank area and pathway to the beach near the boathouse. Both Anna and John have coordinated their time extensively to carry out these requirements. This pathway already existed for several generations as well and was in good condition. However, as part of the DPA, we were able to upgrade the pathway and all surrounding area. The number one priority has always been to ensure the continued stability of the bank. Trees were inspected and trimmed if necessary. Extensive focus was to save one tree in particular from dying, which was right next to the boathouse, as this tree's roots have been stabilizing the bank area by up to 60% of the overall ground cover. New plantings were put in place to take root, to take over when older plants or trees may die over time. Invasive species were eradicated and is also part of ongoing maintenance. While Anna and Dennis are intelligent people and excel in their careers and areas of expertise, they do not pretend to have known everything about waterfront areas, riparian areas, grandfathering of buildings or boathouses, docks. They have had to learn the hard way at great expense, and in turn, so have John and I. While John and I have careers that provide us with a greater knowledge of local government rules and regulations, again, we do not pretend to know all the rules either. It is a constant learning environment. Many of you politicians have entered your roles in local government with probably a low knowledge base at first, only to learn as you go along, a constant learning environment again. Every situation must be looked at and judged individually, which is the role of council or the boards, as every situation brings with it specific issues for consideration and review. The only reason I'm standing in front of you tonight is because we have been waiting almost 3 years to see resolution of our boathouse, and because I recently challenged the due process not provided to us. While CVRD staff are very intelligent people and provide good service to the public, they too make mistakes, no matter how long they have been in their careers. While we were routinely promised to be notified of open portion meetings to prepare for and to speak to the board or related committees, that did not happen due to an oversight of communication within your departments. Therefore, review of our file was discussed within the EASC closed meeting on September 19, 2018, without our being notified of the open portion to present. We were advised the outcome of that meeting was a split decision or a positive recommendation by the committee to allow a notice on title, allowing us to keep our boathouse in present state and to prevent anyone, including any future owners, of completing any future upgrades or extensive repairs. Apparently then there was another meeting at the board level, perhaps October 3rd, where that recommendation was overturned, and it was decided that instead the CVRD may obtain a court order to request us to take the boathouse down in its entirety. Again, we were never advised of this meeting nor the open portion to speak until too late. I implore the members of the board to reconsider this recommendation. To make such a permanent decision is to impact a lifestyle that has been enjoyed through many generations. This boathouse has always been that, a boathouse. It houses kayaks, a paddleboard, and life jackets. It has no running water, no toileting facilities, no electricity or power, no lighting whatsoever. It is one level and always has been. The roof line was extended as thought that repairs meant a new roof was permissible. It seemed a good idea at the time in that the slight overhang could shelter the lower deck and protect the kayaks as well when outside and the outer structure of the building overall. Any submission of photos of the original boathouse from over 60 years ago to present day should be ignored. They are not relative to the ongoing repairs that would have occurred to that boathouse over the years. To look around the bay, or at any other bay for that matter, and compare all structures from the same time period to present day, none of them would even remotely resemble their original look. That is a fact. So I ask now, why are we to be made an example of when being compared to other structures on the various waterfronts, whereby some have gone far beyond the scope of repairs to the point of major renovations, building second stories, installing plumbing and electrical, massive decks surrounding them, and also in many cases, even within our own bay, have been actively renting these locations out as bed and breakfasts or using as places to sleep. Ours can in no way be compared to these, which comes back to the idea that every situation should be looked at individually. Are we now to only have satisfaction by in turn registering complaints against all the other structures that appear to be non-conforming? There's no satisfaction in that. The old saying, no harm, no foul, should also be applied, and some common sense. We are told that the CVRD would love to regularly oversee and enforce waterfront areas. However, do not have the staff available for that, as that would be a full-time job, and that they will only discuss the ones at hand where complaints were made. Again, this is a flawed process, something that should be looked at perhaps by a new board. The present board, and I'm sure previous boards, have all understood this flawed process, and yet no action seems to be taken to improve it, just examples will be made. You have the power now, before another election is imminently upon us, without deferring to a new board to review in particular our file, with perhaps little or no experience by the board, and expend more valuable staff time and resources to do the right thing. By allowing a notice on title, you are taking action. Many jurisdictions choose this option. Any future owners who would attempt to change the structure of the Boathouse building, in our case in particular, would have the notice on title, showing on their title when purchasing the property, and would not be able to claim ignorance. Action and enforcement could take place on the CVRD's behalf at any time in the future and would be a much more straightforward process. Perhaps this should have been considered with all waterfront properties instead of the gray area grandfathering process that currently exists. How far is the CVRD expected to go in all of these cases, at great expense to the taxpayers as well, to enforce these types of situations that also involve Crown land? Overall, the Mill Bay area in particular has taken into account the wishes of the people that live and play there. Most of the beachfront accesses are not impeded by any structures and allow everyone enjoyable access to walk freely along the waterfront. They have managed to not allow any future docks, again a controversial issue, where many nearby jurisdictions routinely allow them. But again,
Excuse me,
yes.
Ms. Pite, can I ask you to wrap
Yes.
up your
Yes, I'm
comment?
on my last paragraph. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
They've managed to not allow any future docks, which many nearby jurisdictions routinely allow. But again, those appear to have been the expressed wishes of the residents. Please take into account the minimal, if at all, complaint basis relating to our boathouse. It has not grown in overall footprint to interfere with any of the things I mentioned above. And I thank you for your review and consideration.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. Pite? Seeing none at this time, thank you very much for coming in tonight. Okay, we can move to our second delegation, and I would like to invite forward Michelle Kirby. Mary Dolan is on our list. Hi, Mary. I notice you here tonight, but Michelle Kirby, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This must feel like deja vu.
A little bit.
And for those of you that don't know, I had the lovely experience of participating or sharing in your public hearing at the municipality of North Cowichan.
And how many hours was that?
About 4.
We became old
right?
friends during that, I think.
Yeah, and so did my friends here that came with me tonight. I am wondering why I don't see start from this slide. That's why, because I'm not. There we go. Got it. It's all good. So can everybody hear me? Okay, so I'm Michelle Kirby. I am a retiring counselor from the District of Oak Bay, which I had my last meeting last night So for those of you that are, this is your last meeting, congratulations. And for those of you that are carrying on, I wish you good luck in the election. I must say it's quite a satisfying experience to be on my way doing something different. So I have a new job. My new title is Senior Manager of Partnerships and Engagement for the Ministry of Children and Family Development and for the province of BC. So it's the longest title in the world, but basically I'm a salesperson for childcare, which is absolutely a dream come true for me. So I advocated for childcare for a long time before I got on council, and now here I get to combine the two, selling childcare to you folks. So I'd like first to acknowledge that we're on the land we gather is the traditional territory of the Cowichan tribes, and that their historic connections to these lands continue to this day. And there's a brief overview of what I'm going to talk about, the vision for Childcare BC, what we're doing to create new spaces. I'm going to give you some examples of successful projects that have been done in the past, and I'm going to show you some leading local governments, and believe you me, you're going to be interested to hear who those people are. Just to get started, we have, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was $1 billion invested in childcare, I love saying that, by the provincial government in this year's budget, in February's budget. So $1 billion over the next 3 years, which is a lot of money. And this is a ministry that had very limited staff and really didn't have a lot going on up till now. So this is a huge investment and a big ramp up for us in order to make sure that we can build this system. And the vision for the system is to build a universal childcare system, so similar to our healthcare system and our K-12 education system, something that's accessible to all, that's high quality, and that's affordable. And so in some cases, very soon to be rolled out, families will not be paying anything for childcare, which is a dramatic change from what we are currently seeing. Up to the goal after we rolled it out to every age group, we're starting off with infant toddler, which is the most expensive and the most difficult to get right now, where families are paying about, well, in the Victoria area, about $2,200, anywhere from $1,500 to $2,200 a month for one child. So the goal is to focus there first, and then as we roll this out, we aim to have families paying anywhere from $10 a day or less. So it's very exciting, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it. So, and I hope you will be too. So I'll just give you a quick overview of the amount of all the money where that $1 billion is going. So we've got $630 million going towards affordability. So that's money that's going to end up back in the pockets of British Columbians. So families that are currently paying those fees will no longer be paying those fees and suddenly have a bit of disposable income to spend back in your communities, and also to put into other things like mortgages and housing, all those other lovely family expenses that we all enjoy. And so this is the affordability aspect. We have an affordable childcare benefit, which is replacing what everybody used to know as subsidy, and it's been rolled out starting September. So that's the beginning of this $10 a day or less daycare, and so families that are earning about $45,000 or less will pay $0, and then there's a sliding scale up to $111,000 where you have some sort of benefit. We also rolled out the Childcare Fee Reduction Initiative in April, which reduced everybody's childcare by $350 in licensed childcare facilities. That approximately 50,000 childcare spaces were part of that program, and they've already delivered that to many, many people. I have heard that there are some delays, and we're working really hard to keep up with the demand. As you can imagine, enrolling 50,000 families over a few months, and having to actually build the staff to do that and the systems to do that was a bit of a challenge. So, if you hear complaints, believe me, we're happy to hear about them, because we want to make sure we are addressing issues as they come up. And I know you guys are on the ground hearing things from your constituents, especially right now if you're door knocking. So let us know if there's any issues there. And yeah, those are the affordability programs. We have 136 million invested in quality. So quality is making sure that we have a registry that is overseeing early childhood educators and not licensing, because that's Ministry of Health, but that making sure that the registry is rolled out and the education that they're receiving at post-secondary institutions meets the standards that we would expect from all of our institutions in British Columbia. I think some institutions have popped up and are providing less than the quality one might expect. And so we're trying to make sure that we get to all institutions across BC to make sure that they're delivering high quality programming to the teachers that are teaching our youngest and most vulnerable children. And we are also rolling out $7.4 million over 3 years to expand the early childhood educator post-secondary program. So making sure that there's enough staff, because we hear that regularly, that there's not enough ECEs available to fill spaces, to staff up, and as we build spaces, we won't have enough ECEs. Well, we have 620 new graduates that will come into the field in the next year, because we are opening up new spaces and making sure that there is availability and providing more flexibility to ECEs to upgrade their certificates and do that online through UBC. And we're also providing bursaries so that we can provide access for families, or ECs that are looking to upgrade that don't have that capacity, and help them access the bursary program. You can encourage people to go to Childcare on the Childcare website on the BC government. Then accessibility, this is my area, so we're trying to build the spaces. We have the 3 pillars to this plan: affordability, quality, and accessibility. So now we have to build the spaces. So as you're all aware, there's not enough spaces, and we have about a 12% average. Some places it's up to 20% coverage rate. So there's, per population, there's 20% coverage at best for our population of children. So 80% are out there looking for spaces, or staying home with mom and dad, or staying with a grandparent, or have some unlicensed care, or some kind of casual arrangement with a neighbor. But that's a huge number. So what we hope to do is provide options for families so they have choices, and we want to build a system that will allow up to a 57% coverage for the province. So that's quite a big gap for us to fill. And in some areas it's bigger than others. Some communities are finding it a way bigger stretch than that. So we've invested $237 million to improve access, so that means building 24,000 spaces across BC. I have a really tough job. This is where you can start to feel bad for me. And we're doing all kinds of other things like upgrading, offering, some of this funding is going to allowing people to upgrade their facilities. We've never done that before. We've offered money to private daycares because they've never received the money. They're just super enthusiastic, and we're spending the money like crazy to help them replace their vacuum cleaners and broken down fridges and repair, stairs and all those things that are required by licensing to make sure that their facilities are safe and meeting standards. So they can access up to $4,500 to do that. And there's also another fund of $25,000 in order to move a facility. So if they have to close because for some reason a lease is up and they no longer are allowed to stay in a facility, they need to move, we'll offer up to $25,000 to help them move. And we also have a startup grant which allows people to go from being an unlicensed daycare to being a licensed daycare. So we'll give you $4,500 to help you get licensed. And that's very popular as well. So that's really exciting to see people be getting licensed, because that assures better quality and more oversight and regulation of the spaces. And then the final thing is the Childcare BC New Spaces Fund, which is what I'm here to talk to you about most. And that's
I'm just going to get permission from the board to extend for
Sorry,
you to.
have I already used up my 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I'm terrible.
That's okay.
So
I see
sorry.
everybody's agreeing to it, so please carry on.
Thank you. Okay, I'll try to be quick here. So as I was just getting into, the New Spaces Fund is the exciting new grant program that the BC government is offering. But before I tell you about that, I'm going to tell you about two new grants that UBCM is offering with the federal funding we received. So UBCM is going to deliver only to local government, two programs. One, to help you build spaces, the other to help you plan and determine what your community needs. You might not have any idea. Do you need infant toddler? Do you need 3 to 5 spaces? By 3 to 5 I mean, age 3 to 5. Do you need out of school care spaces? What's the greatest needs in your community? So we have these two grant programs. They're very tight timelines. As you can see, the application deadline is January 18th, 2019. Which is why I'm here now on the very last meeting before you guys face the election. This is awkward timing, but that's why it's important that you know about this now and maybe get to work on these applications. So I'm going to switch it up here. This is the Childcare Planning Program, and I'm just going to let you know that each local government, and only local governments, no one else, is entitled to $25,000 per community, per local government. So I think there's 4 munis?
4 municipalities and plus the regional district.
Right. You can, each local government can apply for up to $25,000. But we encourage you to partner and put in one application for all 5 of you, which makes you eligible for $125,000. Which is a pretty adequate sum to go out and hire a planner or ask your own staff as a resource to start doing some childcare planning. So I'd really love for you to all take careful note of that, and also that the application deadline is again January 18th, 2019, very soon. So I don't think that everybody's going to have their ducks in a row, and we'd love to see the CVRD get their ducks in a row and be on this funding request. So we encourage you to do that one, and then the other one, like I said, is the Community Childcare Space Creation Program, which allows up to $1 million, 100% provincial federal funding, and no requirement from you folks, but only available to local government to build childcare. So this is your capital structures. So if you have a rec center that needs an upgrade, or could renovate and add on some childcare spaces, or you have any other community building or land that you want to offer up to build childcare on, we will give you up to $1 million to build that childcare through this UBCM grant. There's only $13 million in this fund, but as I mentioned, I've got $221 million in my other hand, because I'm just like so generous here. I love this job. So the focus for this one is on 0 to 5, so the priority's on infant toddler. So if you're going to build something, make sure you're building it for infant toddler, because that's where the greatest need is. It might not be here. If your needs assessment comes back and says, actually, all we need is out-of-school care spaces, well, that's great. Then that provides some evidence for them to support your application. And so it gets even better. You can apply for those grants up till January 19th, 2018. But in addition, the government of British Columbia has the BC New Spaces Fund, Childcare BC New Spaces Fund. So this is also up to 100%, it is 100% provincial funding, but up to $1 million per facility for public sector applicants. So this is open to a wider audience. It's not just local government. This is school districts, local government, First Nations, partnering with nonprofit childcare providers. There are all other kinds of categories I won't bore you with, but it's available to just about everybody, but in smaller sums. You guys get the most money, because we want to make sure we're taking your public dollars and investing it into public assets. We're going to make sure that these are here for the long haul. This is not just some fly-by-night childcare plan. This is a 15-year commitment on your part to run these facilities. So we want to make sure we're investing for the long haul and in public dollars and public assets. So the application process, the application process for the Childcare BC New Spaces Fund is open continuously, so there's no deadline. So if you miss the January 19th or 18th deadline, 2019, you still have this as your backup. So I hope that you'll consider applying for all three. I have a couple of examples, and I know I've taken up too much time, so I'm going to race through this really quickly, but I just want you to see the variety of places and spaces that have been created across BC with money from the provincial government already. So the Blueberry Creek Community School was purchased for $1 from the school district when they ran out of funds to maintain this old building, and they gave it to the Blueberry Creek Community School Society for $1, and they applied for funding from us, only $110,000. They got a small contribution from the Columbia Basin Trust, and they were able to renovate one classroom in that facility and create 12 infant toddler spaces, which were instantly filled. And it made sure that there's a continuity of care there. They've got ages 0 to 12 in the same old school that's been renovated, and that made all the other programs viable. Just having that extra age group added, the rest of the programs were struggling. As soon as they added the infant toddler, the rest worked. And so I think it's really important to think about that the range of care that you can offer. By creating a childcare hub, you make lives easier for families. One place to drop off and pick up for before and after school care, and your toddler and your infant all in the same place, and with a high quality of care in a public facility. So this is a really cool program that's supported by the City of Castlegar. And I also want to mention that the Mayor of Castlegar talks about how there's a community needs a recreation center and childcare. Families won't stay unless they've got both. So keep that in mind as we move forward. This is a beautiful building that's been done at Port Alberni, the Friendship Center, for almost $500,000. It's got 50 spaces and a language nest to learn for the children to learn the language, and it's a thriving, wonderful facility. And now I'll get into leading local governments. I want to show off my municipality of Oak Bay a little bit. So I thought this was the norm, and as you may think this is the norm when I get to the next couple of slides, but the District of Oak Bay has moved their childcare, which has existed for 25 or 30 years, in an old cinder block change room in the middle of Carnarvon Park. It was there forever and had 3 to 5 year olds in the daycare there. And we decided when we built this new high school, we applied for a neighborhood learning center from some additional funding from the Ministry of Education. We got an extra $17 million added to our high school. So if you look at that, where the white part is on the building there, just underneath it, the brick section on the right, all the way down that side of the building, on the main level is our space, is the Recreation Oak Bay space. And it's filled with childcare. All the way from a 3 to 5 daycare that's open from 7 to 5:30 to a teen center and out of school care spaces in the multipurpose rooms beyond that is also used by Oak Bay Rec in the after hours. So it's a huge generator of revenue for us, and we are able to sustain that building because of the revenues we get from those childcare programs. And I'm talking close to $300,000 a year. We have in revenue that helps pay the $90,000 lease to the school district, as well as pays for running of our other facilities like the swimming pool and the skating rink, which are just adjacent to this building in our rec center, and the kids get access to that because they're right nearby, and the program is run by us. So it's a great program, and we're very proud of it. But even better, Tofino, it's like the West Coast is the place, we're just the leaders, right? So Tofino also runs their own daycare and is the license holder for a 3 to 5 daycare. They've got 18 full-time childcare spaces there, and they share this building, as you can see up in the top corner there, with the health unit. And it's a great little combination to have the health unit right next door, because the kids trust the health nurses, they're right there, and it feels good for families. So that's a great arrangement. And Dun, da, da, da. Cowichan Valley Regional District is yet another leading local government, and you folks have the Shawnigan Lake Community Center, which has been operating for 23 years out of an old school. I don't need to tell you that, but this is one of three. You guys are one of three governments in BC, local governments, that are running your own daycare. And I think that's fabulous, and I hope to see more of this. So applause to you for already being ahead of the curve and being leaders in this area. You have, you can see the listing of all the different childcare spaces out of that old school. And we hope you will expand, renovate, build more, or use this as a model for other places in your community. And I spoke to your staff there, and they're very enthusiastic. So I think you should be proud of them. And that's about all I have to say. So I hope you will consider these wonderful options and the funding that's available to you now. And it's never been done before. And it might, let's hope it lasts long, but I'd say take advantage of it while it's on offer. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Michelle. It's, I think, really important that you got to us as soon as you could. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Director Acton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Councillor Kirby. Maybe you keep the title till midnight. I don't know if I missed it, but so you have this goal of 57% of the population of kids before school age.
Yeah.
And so what is the timeline that you have to reach that goal?
10 years.
10 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So I missed that.
That's the
And
vision.
then-
It's a 10-year vision.
Okay.
Yeah.
But 3 years, the funding is
Yeah.
already set.
Yeah.
And then you were talking about the spaces, and when you talked about the spaces and some of the grants that you had available, like, does that also include home-based childcare?
Yeah, we have the range. I could have gotten into the weeds with you here, but it's everything from a family multi-age care to a group licensed care facility. So we have, a minimum, I think, of 8 kids on a license to a maximum of, well, there is no maximum.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you focused on the municipalities being able to get some of the grants. Now, is it easy enough to just explain how that is for the electoral areas?
It's just the same. You're a local government. Yeah.
Okay. so
As a
it's-
regional district,
'cause-
not as a separate electoral area.
Okay, so just apply as a regional district.
At the
and,
through the regional district, yeah.
Could look at it as a region. Yeah, thanks. I think our community center has actually already benefited from a couple of your grants this year.
Maybe, and they may have.
Small ones.
They may have had some smaller grants to help with renovations, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Director Dory?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I attended Michelle's workshop last week, and it was so impressive, and the opportunity was so great that I know that we should be doing something like this. Childcare is probably the most important thing that happens in our society for giving people the proper start in life. And we're lacking there. People are running around like crazy trying to get places for their kids, and it's just so unsettling to families, especially with 2 working people. I have a motion to make that Michelle drafted for me, and I wanted
have to admit that.
to make a second motion as well. I don't know whether to do it now or wait for the discussion to happen. So maybe let the discussion go on, and now.
Mr. Carruthers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to suggest that you have the discussion. I'm just actually looking at Director Dory's proposed resolution. I'm going to edit it and simplify it a little bit for the board's consideration. So if you continue with your discussion, and I'll continue to work here.
We'll
Okay.
come back to it.
Okay.
Thank you. Director Kent?
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
I think this is fantastic. I know Mary knows my involvement with early childhood education for many years, being chair of Success by 6 in the Cowichan Valley.
Great.
And understanding the fundamentals around not only the development of children, which takes place right from birth, and is so key to our economy in the long run with respect to the cost of services that we have to provide if children don't get a good start, and also to our economy in general, because with families having to work so hard to get forward in their lives, it really answers the question towards labor shortage issues that we have. And so good quality childcare is essential to us in so many ways. And, you know, we all have personal experience. I have a 5-year-old granddaughter and my son and his wife struggled with childcare while and now she's in kindergarten, and we've got a new one coming in November. So,
congratulations.
perfect timing, I would suggest. And, you know, it also speaks to us managing the assets we have in our community already for ensuring that children get the best start that they can. And so I congratulate the government and all those involved in bringing a program forward like this. So thanks very much. I don't have any questions because I don't have the answers either, but I am very keen to know that this is taking place. Thank
Thrilled
you.
to hear it. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you. Going back to Director Dory.
I won't talk about the motion right now, but basically, one of the most attractive things about this program is that there's $25,000 per municipality that can go into it, and that's $25,000 for the CVRD. So that means if we added them all up, we could have $125,000, which is more than adequate to do a study. And the Ministry of Health is very involved in this as well. They have all the numbers. They got all the numbers of the kids. They got all the listing of the daycares. They've got facilities, and the school board also has a lot of information about where it could take place on school grounds as well. So, and there are churches and other places that could be a location for a daycare. So, yes, it's a sort of a complex thing, getting it all the ducks in a row, but we'll need staff to get together with the other municipalities and say whether they want to come in with us or whether we just want to go it alone, or they want to go it alone. But basically, having a regional plan would be probably the best way to go, in my opinion. So I'll leave it at that and let the discussion go on, and we can get back to the motion in a minute.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Berry, I believe you have a motion, or Mr. Carruthers? A lot of finger pointing going on here.
A lot of finger pointing because it's a really good motion. So the CAO has proposed, and I'll read it out here, that an application be submitted to the UBCM Community Childcare Planning and Community Childcare Space Creation Programs and the Childcare BC New Spaces Fund to undertake a childcare needs assessment within the Cowichan region, and further, that member municipalities be approached to consider a partnered application with the CVRD.
Okay, moved by Director Dory, seconded by Director Kent. I had Director Yanni DiNardo on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know when I was campaigning a year and a half ago, the $10 a day daycare, childcare was really important. And also knowing, I have my youngest daughter who has her master's in early childhood education, but also knowing that from 0 to 7 is such a critical time in a child's life. It's really key that we actually spend the time and spend the money now that will save us in the future and in the long run in so many ways. So I'm really glad that you're in charge of this, Michelle, and that we can move forward in something like this. It's about time, and it's a long time coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Morrison?
Thank you, and I wish I would have had an opportunity to comment prior to the resolution being put on the floor. I'm completely supportive of the initiative. I think it's great that dollars are being prepared. You know, Mary, you've been beating this drum for an awful long time, and I thank you for that. I'm sitting here feeling that in a kind of a peculiar space, because we are engaged with our communities right now, talking about the creation of a drinking water and watershed protection function. We're engaged in the discussion around affordable housing. I have been to a number of all candidates meetings where the term stick to your knitting has been a very forceful line. And I could see that this makes a whole bunch of sense for school districts to be engaged in providing another level of care and education. I guess where I'm having some difficulty understanding that as an electoral area and local government for electoral areas, how we step up and engage in an activity such as this when we haven't even had preliminary discussions about the creation of a service. And so I would ask if staff might explain how when we don't have elector consent to engage and apply and flow through like we're doing in so many other areas, how is it that this is an acceptable way of proceeding when we haven't done that, we haven't conducted that exercise?
Mr. Carruthers?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was actually having some of the same thoughts as Michelle was making her presentation. However, the Cowichan Valley Regional District has already entered into this field of endeavor. We currently and have for 23 years operated a childcare facility within one of our facilities. The funding is dedicated to local governments for activity within their buildings. We have 2 other recreation centers, 3 actually, if we consider Shawnigan. We also have other publicly owned lands. We have the Saltaire Community Center in Saltaire and other municipal buildings. So I was a little concerned about that myself. I don't think we're stretching our limits, our capacity. This would fall under community services. This would be considered a program offered through recreation services. We do already offer that service, so I think it's within scope. If we were to extend it beyond our specific municipal buildings, I think we'd have to be thinking about establishing a service, particularly if we were going to be requisitioning funds. But I feel that this would comfortably fall within our existing recreation function. And I would look to Mr. Elzinga if he had any other thoughts on that.
Mr. Elzinga?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Island Savings Center has in the past offered a licensed daycare as well, so that should probably be put on the table. And could again, there is some discussion around the Aquinas Center part of the building and some of the services that could be provided in that space. We have investigated a childcare partnership with Vancouver Island University, and there are detailed plans, or at least conceptual plans, that are drawn up to that effect. So there is some progress, I guess, with some of the other recreation centers, as well as Shawnigan Lake. The Couch Lake Recreation model is not licensed, but is providing childcare as well.
Thank you for that. Director Marsh.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I remember my first UBCM going to a session by Professor Paul Kershaw, and I think Michelle and our other Michelle were there, and many of the women were just really struck, and a few of the women who were younger moms actually were moved to tears when they heard the data and thought, well, this is why I can't get ahead, because parents are paying the second highest fee they pay, and especially in the cities after housing, is childcare. We heard it, $2,200 a month for the care of one child. And you know, when I was having children, you could raise children on one income, but that's not true anymore. So Dr. Kershaw calls the 45 and under crowd, which are probably the 50 and under now, because he was saying that then, and that was quite a few years ago, wasn't it? Generation squeeze. And this is a way that we can get our residents' money, because this money's coming from the government, to our community. And the only strings are that we could maybe have to profit with a nonprofit or something to run it. Somebody's going to pay the fees. The part of the plan is that these people are going to make a livable wage, and the government is going to make sure that happens. So I'm comfortable. I wondered that too, but then I checked into it and found out that since we have a service already, we have a service, and this is UBC money that's directly for local government. The thing that really sold me on it, because I heard a lot of people saying, well, we shouldn't be in the child care business, blah, 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 blah. But the Vancouver Board of Trade and the Surrey Board of Trade both endorsed this $10 a day childcare plan because it's going to get women in the workforce and caring fathers who are taking care of children. It's going to free up all that child care money for those struggling people to be stimulating the local economy. So they think it's going to be an incredible thing for the economy when it rolls out. And I think it's exciting that Director Dorey brought whatever your new title is, Mish, to the CVRD at this time. Right now, we can make a statement and we can get that hopefully with our partners, get maybe all that 125,000. I know North Cowichan has moved a motion, and I suspect we'd be very open to joining with the rest and not doing it on our own. And so I fully support this, and thank you, Director Dorey, for bringing it forward. And thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Director Stone?
Yeah, I think that, echoing previous statements by Director Marsh, I think that once we've got the assessment and know what our needs are, then we can work together collaboratively on how we address those. There's a lot of different opportunities that may be addressed differently in different areas of the region. Shawnigan has an established that could use some expansion. Town of Ladysmith has unused space in our recreation center that could use a useful life. And I know that the demand is there anecdotally, but until we have the actual study work that says this is what your needs are, it's hard for us to go to get the funding to do the work that needs to happen. And a lot of things like Success by Six, a lot of other programs that are out there are being changed and remorphed into either different things or being taken away, maybe not the right words, but being changed. And I think that we need to be prepared for what the new landscape looks like, and this is probably, I think, the best first step to getting there. So I was, I'll be honest, I was texting my CAO saying when we have our meeting tomorrow morning, we got to talk about childcare and move that forward. But if the board is willing to support this initiative at this level, then we can take it back to our municipalities and our electoral areas and sort of start building the understanding of how it will work within each of our areas. And I think it's important that we, again, when we come to this table, that we look at all of the needs of our region together. Shawnigan maybe has a head start in that way. North Cowichan's already made a move, and we would go along with supporting it as well. So I thank you as well for making the motion, and Michelle, for you coming here today.
Thank you. I've got a list. Director Kent?
I'll be supporting this motion. I know that we will be entertaining a notice of motion coming to our next council meeting on the 15th in this regard with respect to partnership. What enthralls me the most about this is leveraging the assets that we already have with respect to developing this new childcare. The city has supported 2 daycares in the city for many, many years. One, both with property and one with an actual building asset that we've provided to daycare organizations or care organizations to provide those spaces, and that's been happening for well over almost 30 years. Mary? Plus. So it's possible, it's plausible, and it's necessary. So I support the motion.
Thank you. Director Dorey?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that at this point in time, we're not increasing the CVRD services that are already there. We're just exploring what we need to do out there, not from the CVRD point only, but from a community point and from a healthy point and an education point. So we're going to be going in a whole bunch of different directions, not just CVRD direction. So this is an opportunity that I think that we have to take, and I think it's the right thing to do, and I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Salmon?
Thank you. I may have missed this at the beginning, but would these new spaces be subsidized? Is this, or what's the typical cost?
Yeah, as far as the cost to families or
Yes,
operational
say.
costs of the
No,
facility? Cost to families, well, like, as I mentioned, we're reducing the fees as quickly as possible. So the universal system is being rolled out as we speak. So I'm spending a lot less time doing what I really thought I was going to be doing, which is selling this new spaces fund to you guys, and spending a whole lot more time on a new thing that you'll hear about in the coming weeks, which is rolling out of prototype sites across BC. So we're setting up, we're trying to take every example of every kind of daycare across BC and fund them directly. So they will no longer receive fees from parents. They will receive, if you have an extremely wealthy family attending that daycare, they may pay up to $10 a day. But everybody else will pay nothing. It'll be a free daycare. So the fees are disappearing as we speak. Families will pay less and less as we go on. This is just getting started. It's absolutely the tip of an iceberg, but that's the fees. As far as operating funding goes, I'll let you know that I met with the BC Parks and Rec Association Executive Director this morning, and they're the largest provider of childcare in BC. There are 300 members, all of you folks who have rec centers. We are the largest, local government is the largest provider of childcare in BC, which surprised me, honestly. I thought it was school districts, right? Because they have a lot of facilities on their properties, but only 54 of the 60 school districts in BC have licensed childcare on their property, but that's going to change. As I mentioned earlier, this New Spaces Fund is not just directed at local governments, it's also directed at school districts. But if they build spaces by themselves, it still won't be enough. We still need more infant toddler, we still need more 3 to 5 daycare, and they can build the before and after school care, like by using their school gyms and a multi-purpose room or that kind of thing. But they can't build it all alone. And we also know that every community is different, and every community has assets that are different. So the public facilities, say, like I mentioned in Blueberry Creek, that old school building is the only public building in Blueberry Creek. So that's why they've used it, and they've made the most of it. But there's, so you know where your local assets are, and you're the best ones to figure this out. That's why we're here to provide the money and as much flexibility as we can. But we don't expect you to do it on your own. But the BCRPA, BC Parks and Rec Association, offers a program that's free for its members that has a coordinator role who provides, they already give out $1,800, I think, is the bursary fund that they give out in a quarterly basis to make sure that your rec centers have before and after school care funded by them. They offer, that's through Ministry of Children and Family Development. We give out money already, and this coordinator offers up programs and says, okay, you guys have never, Shawnigan Lake's never offered a before and after school care program before. Talk to the BC Parks and Rec Association. Here's the package. This is how you do it. These are all, here's the menu of different ways you can deliver deliver before and after school care in your community. We're talking about expanding that role for them, and so that they can make it easier for you and provide free service to you, as making sure that your rec centers have access to that information and just the how-to, taking some of that role of coordination off of your staff and making it less expensive for local governments to get started. Because we offer money, we offer this free support through the BCRPA, and we also have a variety of different kinds of funding to help you operate.
So just to make sure I understand, so basically all these new spaces you're envisioning are all basically free to the parents?
Yeah, eventually, yeah. Over
Hardly-
10 years, over 10 years.
Believe it. That's
Isn't it?
fabulous, yeah. Having
It's-
spent, I estimated over $200,000 on our 4 kids. through-
Right,
through
right?
preschool.
Yeah, I know, it's too late for us, isn't it sad? I know, right?
It
It's wonderful.
sounds to me like Director Salmon is thinking of starting another family.
just to cash in.
Director Walker.
Some of this is up against the time limit, I think, of January the 19th. So we're making a motion, and I guess I'm speaking to the motion, that we go ahead and look at this. I think we've got to do is uncomplicated, because it sounds like Duncan's got it on their agenda. Sounds like Ladysmith's got it on its agenda. It's already been on North Cowichan's agenda, and now it's at the regional district. I just don't know where Lake Cowichan is, but we're talking about 5 governments here. So somehow we have to do a quick and maybe dirty study here so we can meet the January 19th deadline. We're already into October, and I'm a little scared with this resolution if we start studying this thing to death, we're gonna miss some of that stuff. So I think time is of the essence here. A lot of it can be done by email and phone calls to the various other local governments, and they already know whether the swimming pool will work, whether the community center, that might be a little different. We already have Shawnigan Lake, so we've got to get rolling on some of this as quick as we can and meet those deadlines, and then we can work what's missed into the program that takes effect after. So it's just my opinion that we should move swiftly on this because I think it's worthwhile. All we've got to do is provide the spaces, and in some of them we have spaces. There's already some stuff going on or it's empty, and we don't have to throw our own dollars into it. So as I understand it, so I think we should look at it quickly. Something like this doesn't come up very often, and I'm just a little scared if we either turn it to staff and take a little too long, or heaven forbid, form a little committee or something. I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Marsh?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And to speak a bit to Director Walker's concerns, I think that in the work that I've done and Director Kent has done with the early tables, I've come to know that just like there is a whole coalition of people around housing, there's a whole coalition of people around childcare. And I think that they could connect with staff, and there could be potentially a way that their expertise there, you know, for instance, the childcare center behind the municipality, just anecdotally, they figure they turn away 20 calls a day. They don't keep a list anymore. They have a waiting list of 20 people, and they get almost every day 20 calls of people looking for space. So, but that's just anecdotally. But if we get this money quickly, as Councillor Walker said, and as about to be former Councillor Gerby said, you know, there are consultants or there are local groups who have data, and I don't think anyone on our staff would have to do the whole job. So I think it's exciting, and to remember this is the UBCM money, and the study that we get this could help us get some of the government money because it's going to be the same data. And I don't want to talk again tonight, but except to say I think this is kind of cool that Director Dory brought something about children and childcare as he's coming to the swan song of his time on local government after many, many decades of being an educator. I just feel kind of warm about that, and I just wanted to make sure I said it.
It took me a long time to learn.
Thank you, Director Walker, and then perhaps I can call the question.
What I spoke about was only the municipally owned or local government owned buildings. If we start talking to different groups and we start talking into non-profits and maybe into the school board, we will never miss any kind of deadline. I think that comes in wave 2. So we should just stick to our own knitting, and for the January 19th deadline, we should just talk about our own facilities first. And because we have to either offer the land or the facilities, and land would be too difficult in my mind. So I think the nonprofits and those others, there's no way we can round them all up and get everything ducks in order by the 19th.
Okay, Director Marsh?
Just quickly, just to clarify, Director Walker, I meant for the data that they have and the ability to collect the data, which would help us get what you're saying, because this round is only for, you're right, this first round for January is only for local government. And the data that we can collect through others will serve for the next round, because we'll have the data, and without the data, we won't get the spaces. So I've talked quite a bit.
I didn't understand that data shouldn't be debating you, but I didn't understand that it was limited.
Okay.
I thought we should just limit our scope for now. They should be included after.
Okay, I would like to call the question. I think we're only hearing positive things around the table. So, yeah, please.
That an application be submitted to the UBCM Community Childcare Planning and Community Childcare Space Creation Programs and the Childcare BC New Spaces Fund to undertake a childcare needs assessment within the Cowichan region. And further, that member municipalities be approached to consider a partnered application with the CBRD.
Thank you. All in favor and opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank
How are you
you
getting to-
very much. I appreciate this more than you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you getting to all the different, are there more of you? Have you been cloned? Like, are
Well, I left up there my colleague's contact information. Unfortunately, she's got a toddler, so she is that person that gets the regular flu and everything passed along to her by her little man. But yes, I'm doing my best, and honestly, you know what? This is like being a counselor in my day job. What a concept, guys! I get paid.
Okay,
And
okay.
I do it in the daytime.
Hold it. Enough of that talk. Enough of that
You'll
talk.
get everybody unruly
Don't mess
and they'll
this-
all leave.
Don't
Yeah.
mess this thing up. Okay,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate the opportunity, and it was so lovely to get to speak to all of you again. And in this role, I'm thrilled to see that you have supported it. And I wish that everyone was as receptive and enthusiastic as you are. And so please just know that you're incredibly progressive and you are leaders amongst leaders. So I thank you very much for that.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you again. Okay, we can move along to correspondence. Mr. Barry?
Yes, Mr. Chair, one item of correspondence from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities regarding a special advocacy fund. This is a volunteer contribution if you wish, and I see that it's for year 1 and year 2, $840 each.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to ask a question or make a motion on this? Yes, Director Stone?
So the question is whether or not we would, like, they've sent us an invoice, that's a good move. So it's whether or not we want to participate and basically pay. So I guess my question through to staff would be, is there any money in the existing year's budget with any discretion that we could fund this? I think the advocacy work is an important piece, and I think that we have seen both at UBCM and FCM over the last several years now, culminating in the kind of granting programs that we see now. And, you know, frankly, even on the infrastructure side, the meeting I had with the new Minister of Infrastructure, Minister Philippe Champagne, is that they're only working harder to get us that money faster. And knowing the situations that we have within the district and within our municipalities around infrastructure, I think that advocacy work does work when you get a receptive government. So I would be supportive of it if we have it, and subsequently, if the funding is available, I would move that we support and pay the invoice.
Okay, so we have a motion to pay the $840 into the advocacy fund, seconded per year, seconded by Director Marsh. Discussion. Seeing no one wishing to say anything, I'll call the question. All those in favor and opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we can move to committee and commission reports. CR1, Electoral Area Services Committee, Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From our regular meeting held October 3rd, your Electoral Area Services Committee reports and recommends as follows. The first part's for everybody, I believe. One, that up to $35,000 of the Community Works funds allocated for the Brulette sewer system in 2017 be reallocated to the Cary Village water system for water treatment and new source evaluation. 2, that up to $149,307 of the Community Works funds allotted for the Lamburn Estates water system in 2015 be reallocated to the Lamburn sewer system for sewer treatment upgrades. And 3, that the 2019 draft budget reflect these capital projects under supplemental items, and I move those 3.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Yanni DiNardo. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Electoral area directors for the next items. Number 2, 1, that development permit application number DP 18D01, 1590 Cowichan Bay Road be approved, and 2, that the general manager of land use services be authorized to permit minor revisions. I move that item.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Acton. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Moving to the Transit Committee meeting, you have a motion on your on a white page. I don't know if Director Salmon is prepared to present that. If not, we will do so. Director Salmon?
Yes, your Transit Committee reports and recommends as follows, that the Route 44 Saturday transit service be reconfigured from a pilot service to a regular Saturday service provided by the Cowichan Valley Regional Transit System.
So I'm going to look for a mover and a seconder other than yourself because you weren't at that meeting. So it's moved by Director Morrison, second by Director Yanni DiNardo. Any question on this? All in favor? And opposed? Motion carries.
It's not a policy, is it?
Thank you very much. Maybe it is now. Moving on, from those reports, we have bylaws. Mr. Barry.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chair, we have 2 bylaws tonight. This first bylaw for all directors, except Director Dory, because Area G is not a participating area. Bylaw 4237, Transit Service Amendment Bylaw, first 3 readings.
Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded by Director Acton. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
This next bylaw, only electoral area directors, Bylaw 4235, Development Application Procedures and Fees Amendment Bylaw, first 3 readings.
Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded by Director Acton. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And Bylaw 4235 for adoption.
Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded by Director Morrison. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That's it for the bylaws.
Thank you. That will move us down to question period. Are there any questions from a member of the audience? Not tonight. Thank you very much. You can save them up, cash them in later. A motion to adjourn, moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Yanni DiNardo. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.